What's up, everyone, and welcome into episode number 489, where it is my honor and privilege to introduce a special guest during this episode, and that is the all-time assist leader for CMU men's basketball, a four-time captain, and fifth in total points scored all-time at CMU, but now is the newest head coach for SVSU men's basketball, Coach Chris Fowler. How are you doing, Coach?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing great. Appreciate you taking some time. I know you're a busy guy. I also know that you're excited for tomorrow's Axe Bowl. So hopefully it's going to be a good day today and a good day tomorrow for SVSU.
Yeah, I hope it's a great atmosphere. It's going to be my first time, so I hope we get a great game and the Cardinals come out on top.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe paint that axe red again because it was painted
No,
blue
not
last year. So
last year, but we can move on.
yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. The game matters tomorrow, and if you win, you paint it red. So
No question.
yeah, absolutely. So I know that you just got to SVSU a little over 3 months ago, I believe. How's things been going over that period of time? Like, how's getting to know players, families? Because that's really one thing that you talked about in your press conference is about getting to know those players and just kind of getting your feet wet.
I think it's been going great. We had a chance early in the summer when I first got here to either meet with parents and players in person or over Zoom if they were too far away. And, there was a lot of good feedback over what they were looking for out of the program and out of their basketball careers and, how I could be of service to them as players and, how what they need or what I needed from them as players in order to help benefit the overall goal of the program. So I think, we did a good job, my staff and I, of creating and cultivating those relationships early on, as well as other relationships within the city of Saginaw and then people around the Great Lakes Bay region. So everybody that I've met has been super supportive and is super excited about what's going on.
Yeah, because I feel like one thing that isn't really talked enough about is how much basketball can mean to obviously a city, but also to Saginaw as well. Like
Mm.
there's a ton of great talent out in Saginaw and high school, kind of surrounding areas as well. It seems like basketball is something that is really a priority and obviously it has been a priority for you for a really long time as well.
No question. There's a lot of rich history of basketball in this city. I know it's Saginaw United now, but, players at Saginaw Hill, players at Saginaw High, that I played against growing up. And then, you go to Novell and Freeland and Heritage, and there's a lot of talented people in this surrounding area. And the city loves basketball. They do. They do. They want to support it. They want something to be good. And we are very excited to put a product on the court that they can be proud of.
Yeah, no, absolutely, which is obviously the main goal that you want to have. But like, does it feel like things kind of have settled down a little bit now that you've kind of been in the position for 3 months, or is that really never a true thing that can really happen? Is it always go, go, go? Like, or do you feel like kind of now that you have your basis set, you can finally start preparing for basketball season coming up? That's probably, if I would have to guess, starting up in a couple of months.
Yeah, I think for the most part, it wasn't too bad when I started. Like I said, I had a lot of great people around me that helped me get settled in. Some people that are going to help volunteer and some people even in my own family that have made this process very seamless for me. And it's a different level of maybe busy as soon as school started because you got to focus a little bit more on the basketball side when school started. When the guys were not here, it was a little more administrative work than it is now.
Yeah.
So it is go, go, go all the time, but I feel like I got a lot of great people around me who have helped organize me and keep me on task. And, we've divvied up the responsibilities to the point where I feel like we're running pretty well.
Awesome. Love to hear that. And you did mention you have some family that obviously helped with that
Mhm.
transition. And one part of your family is obviously your dad. Your dad coached you when you were young. He put you basically in the point guard position at 6 years old when you're going up against 8 year olds. Was it always, in your opinion, meant for you to be a basketball coach? Do you kind of divvy it to kind of being coached by your dad? Do you kind of divvy it to being a point guard? Or was it truly like just a combination of both of those?
Everything that's happened, I feel like in my life has led me to this point. I'm not sure, what part it was that triggered, maybe me wanting to be a coach. I've always prided myself on my basketball IQ and my ability to think the game, as well as my ability to articulate that to other players on the floor. And, my dad put me in that situation early on, more off because I was playing up to play with my older brother, like so we could be on the same team. So it was out of circumstance that allowed me to lead at an early age. And then him continuing to push me to help me grow on that. And then the other coaches that I was fortunate to be around, whether it be football or baseball or in high school, more basketball coaches or in college, my college coach continuing to push and add on to that foundation that my dad built. All of that kind of led to this moment.
What was it like playing for your dad? Like, what kind of coach was he? Was he one of those coaches that, like, kinda let you do your own thing, or was it pretty, like, I don't wanna say strict, but was it, like, a pretty hard style of coaching?
It was a pretty hard style of coaching. He wasn't it was he taught a lot about life through the game
Yeah.
and the type of things that you needed mentally, physically, and spiritually to be successful at all things, right? So it was those things where he was trying to push myself and the people around me to be successful and courteous and generous young men, not necessarily just basketball players. So it was strict in the sense of how you're going to present yourself and how you're going to work in order to be successful in this world, not necessarily if we're going to go out there and win games. So as you can imagine, if I'm saying that, as you can imagine how practice would be from a conditioning standpoint, from a detail standpoint, because it was how can we apply this to school the next day? And how can we apply this to what's going on this weekend and how we're treating our parents and how we're treating the people around us? It was everything that he kind of encompassed to myself and everybody that played for us.
Yeah, and obviously that ended up leading to success for you. You end up going to Central Michigan, having a great career there. But I'm sure it's probably really helped format for the coach that you want to be. Like obviously you want to be your own coach. You've learned from plenty of great coaches. In my opinion, maybe one of the greatest, if not the greatest coach in the entire country. And Tom Izzo will
Mhm.
talk about that kind of relationship. But I'm sure that like all that foundation has really helped you lead to the moment that you are currently right now.
Definitely. It was a a huge pillar, in the way my life and how I ran my life, just as a person, not necessarily even as an athlete or as a coach. As a person, the different principles and morals that I stand on started, in that gym with him and just being his son and where he took me, as a person through the challenges and also with the love. So, yes, I've added some things to it. Yes, there are some things that I do a little bit differently, but the principles, the foundational morals, everything that comes with that are still the same.
Yeah, and I feel like the principles is the key thing. Like it's all about authenticity. It's all about being yourself. And you talked about authenticity in the press conference, how it's super important for you to be like authentic, that relationship. And we talked at the beginning that relationship with your coaches, with the players as well. But another relationship that you talked about that is extremely important to you is with your brother Benny.
Mhm.
And some people might not know. If they probably do, but obviously your brother is Benny Fowler. He ended up playing at MSU, ended up going to play in the NFL. During
Mhm.
the hiring process, it was your brother that reached out to SVSU. Did
Mhm.
you know he did that? Did he let you know, or was it truly a surprise when you kind of found that out?
No, we talked about it
Okay.
because I mean, in this business is it's a lot about relationships, right? So when this job came open and you research who the AD is and the former AD was at Michigan State for a long time, our AD Lewandowski,
Yeah.
he was at Michigan State for a long time. So in those years, knowing who my brother was there and how successful he was, and my other connections to Michigan State, I asked him to reach out, and of course, being him, he did it, and because he continued to have that relationship with John Lewandowski, those emails were received and taken with more than a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Just because of who he was and the type of person he was there. So that's I asked him to. I definitely knew. Yeah.
That's awesome, and obviously, that has to mean a lot to you to have a supporter of yours like your brother, to have him reach out, and then obviously that be a part of becoming the SVSU coach? I know Lewandowski didn't say specifically that like he's the only reason that you got hired.
Mhm.
Obviously, it might have been a little bit, but I think truly, obviously, your knowledge of the game, your history, probably got you truly hired. But it had to be really cool to have a brother be a supporter of yours, especially an older brother.
Well, yeah, you never know what triggers somebody to make the decisions that they make. You
Yeah,
know, how many relationships in our lives can we trace back to a singular person that facilitates that relationship, right? Like, so this is the one thing I do know is if my brother did not leave an impact on our AD Lewandowski when he was at Michigan State, that was a positive one, then that email might not have been received in the same way.
yeah,
So, what he did while he was at Michigan State and the way he treated people allowed him to send that email knowing it would be received in a good way and would help me in the process rather than hurt me. So I think it just goes back to the type of person he is and the type of person he always is, because you never know who you might need. And at that moment, that connection and relationship they had 10, 12 years ago allowed me to be in this seat today. Whether it was 3% of the reason or 103% of the reason,
yeah.
they had something that meant a lot to them, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, and connections are huge. Like you talked about, it's
Yeah.
about who you know, it's about who the people that you know, it's about the way that you format the relationship, but it's about how you leave that relationship. And that's one thing that is extremely important about coaching is relationships with obviously with like the people in the athletic department, with your players. Like how has kind of getting to know those guys more on a personal level now that they're at school compared to maybe having those Zoom calls.
Mm. I think it's been great. You kind of get to understand their personalities and what makes them go and what drives them to be, want to play the sport. And everybody's different. Everybody has to be approached in a different way, but being able to adapt to certain people's personality types is something that I pride myself on. And you could just see every week those guys open up a little bit more and a little bit more to, you know, enjoying the process and being a part of it while also getting to know one another. And I think that's the cool thing is you see them get closer and closer as the weeks go on and challenge each other and push each other, so we can go to that next level as a unit.
Yeah, and obviously with it being a new system, with probably running different plays, it probably takes a little while to kind of get that under wraps. But it truly is like when you have that connection with those players, when you form those bonds, when those players form the bond together, it helps make that process go a little bit quicker than maybe like if you're just starting from the first step.
Yeah, everybody in here is trying to elevate the person next to them, and we try not to get to the spot that we're trying to get to by eliminating the person above us, but by elevating the person above us.
Yeah.
And that's what we talk about all the time is how can I take the person next to me to the next level, even if they're above me in this sense? Because if I take them to that next level, then I slide into the spot that they left, knowing that I'm prepared for it, and they ultimately get where they want to go, and I got where I want to go. So we want to do it here with elevation and not elimination.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think that is a really great quote because some people might view as like trying to like push each other or maybe like trying to compete against each other. It's more of trying to compete with each other, not against each other. It's about getting better. And that's really the foundation that truly seems like you're trying says about competing with each other. So when it comes time to really get to those games, that when you get to that moment of maybe things aren't going extremely well, you have like captains, you have yourself that are
Mhm.
there that experience like, hey, like this is difficult, but we've done this together and we can continue to do this together.
For sure.
Which obviously is part of building a family. Like that's probably
Yes.
something that you want to do. And speaking of building a family, I don't really know of very many people that have done it better than a former coach that you helped out and a coach that's also a big supporter of yours as well, Tom
Uh-huh.
Izzo.
Uh-huh.
What was it like working with Tom Izzo as a GA? Because like from the outside, obviously as a fan, you're like, that seems a ton of fun. But I'm sure probably there's fun parts, maybe some not so fun.
Well, I think And I say this to people all the time, the farther you get away from coach, the more you appreciate what was going on in that office. Just because the way he approached things every day was special. Like he had a different way of creating an edge to himself and to the people around him every day. And I kind of got him when the program was more than established,
Yeah.
right? Like he didn't have anything else to prove when I was working for him, but you wouldn't know that by the way he worked or the way he pushed the people around him. And he was never going to let the people in that building think what he created was easy
Yeah.
and sustaining it was easy. He worked as if it was the first day all the time. And you have no choice but to appreciate that. And you kind of don't get to appreciate it as much as you can until you leave, until you get farther and further away from it and you realize just how different he is as a human being.
Yeah, and I feel like that's the one thing that makes it unique about who he is just kind of the way he approaches things. Obviously, I've never worked for him,
Mhm.
never played for him, obviously, none of that, but you can see the process, you can see the buy-in, you see players come back for grind week. Like you see how much time and how much effort he puts into those relationships. And there's
Mhm.
might be some people that might feel like, hey, maybe someone like leaves or someone like leaves a year early or transfers. There's not that relationship there anymore. But that's not at all. And you have people that you see Izzo yelling at that you're like, hey, maybe there's not that great I want to say not that great relationship, but there's
Mhm.
a little bit of like a different coaching style, but then they come back every single year for grind a week. It's truly a different type of culture, different type of family. And I'm sure that's probably something that you're trying to, obviously, like I said, trying to build at SVSU. Maybe not exactly, but try and get a
Mhm.
similar idea.
Yeah, I don't know if if it's possible right now to do what he's done. You know, from a level of love standpoint that those guys share with one another, because you kind of have to have the guys return that he's been able to get to come back that preach him that same language
Yeah.
that he has done, and that's built over the course of however many years, like 30 plus years, in which he would be able to stay at the same spot. And that's why I say, like, I the farther you get away from it, the more special it becomes because you just realize how rare it is to do what he's done over the course of time. But he pushes the people in that building, and it's everybody, like the student secretaries, the student managers, the GAs. No matter who you are in that building, you'll be pushed to your highest level. And when you leave, however you leave, the same respect is bestowed upon you if you did what you were supposed to do in the building. It doesn't matter why you left,
Yeah.
but if you gave me everything you had while you were here, you're still a part of this because I would not have as many wins as I have without all of the people that walked through the door. Why, whether they walked in for a reason or walked out for a reason, he does understand that it matters. Like I text him after he became the all-time winner, leading or winning his coach in Big Ten history. And he texts me back about like how I was a part of those wins and thanked me for that. Like he doesn't have to do that.
Yeah.
He did not have to answer the phone because he would have got those wins whether I was there or not, but not in his mind. And
Yeah.
that's what makes him special,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. And I think one part of it that you said that was interesting to your answer was that you didn't think that it could like truly be replicated
Mhm.
nowadays because of like the players have to return. And obviously we
Mhm.
live in a little bit of a different world when it comes to athletics. There's things called transfer portal, there's things
Mhm.
called NIL. And one thing that you talked about in your press conference, your introductory press conference, is that you talked about what players can see from their coach, and you specifically said, quote, because when it is real, you can tell, and when it is real, it is rare. How difficult is it to do that nowadays in college athletics when there's things like NIL, when there's things like transfer portal? Do you think because of those things, obviously, I don't want to say like there's no like authentic coaches anymore, but there might be
Mhm.
coaches that might tell players of you like, hey, if you come here, you'll get this, this, and this. But
Mhm.
they say that just to get the player to come here.
That is essentially the job. You know, you have to get the player to come there, but at the end of the day, the real version of you is going to come out when that player is there and doing whether what they're supposed to do or not what they're supposed to do. So, I mean, the landscape of the sport is changing, but it's also changing for the better also of the practitioner, in my opinion,
Okay.
because it's gonna force us all to do our jobs just a little bit better. Like we're gonna have to shrink the time in which we are able to develop players because we're not gonna have 4 years.
Yeah,
So you have to be more strategic and scientific in how you're gonna go about developing players to get them to reach their peak for you as quite quickly as you can. Your roster might change over from one year to the other, in which the system schematically that you run the year before, you're not going to be able to run the next year.
exactly.
That ultimately leads to better knowledge and better wisdom of the practitioner, and ultimately will make the sport better if we can get it right. So it's going to challenge and push everybody. The issue becomes you're not going to be able to gain the relationships you once did by getting to know somebody over the course of from when they were 18 to when they're 22 or 23. You're not going to see the full growth of that. But from a knowledge standpoint, from a wisdom standpoint, we have to shrink our timetable. And because you got to get better all the time.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's fun.
Yeah, and you talked about kind of that wisdom as well. If you can't tell, I listened to your
Mhm.
opening
No, I
press
appreciate it.
conference. I thought
Yeah.
I thought it was truly great, but you talked about that wisdom and you talked about just like giving as much as you possibly can to players because you basically said that you want to give them everything you have, but you hopefully never give them enough because you're continuing to learn because of what you said, is it like harder to kind of like try to give them everything because of there's that so much like that time difference? Because when you have 3 or 4 years, you can build a player up, but when you
Mhm.
only maybe have a year or two, depending on the player, like you don't have that time, like you said, anymore that you might have had to give them that fully everything.
Well, I think before you could save some things because you had time. Where now where when they get there immediately, you kind of have to give them everything you have because you're trying to get the best version of them in the year. You know, you got a year with them.
Yeah.
So you're trying to get the best version out of them within that year. So you're constantly trying to tweak the formula to try and, okay, I got this in the 3 months with this person. Can I cut it down to be able to get it in a month and a half to two? Right. And
Yeah.
I think that is what we're all going to be seeking is how can we make our programs the best in order to get out of these players exactly what we need in a shorter amount of time. And I think to me, that is what this landscape, the changing landscape has done for basketball. It's the model that overseas they've had to work with for a long time. Their teams change almost every year. So now when you know that, your knowledge has to change almost every year. So there might be a defensive scheme that you can work with in 25, 26, that in 26, 27, your personnel doesn't allow you to do.
Yeah.
That's not how it had to be because before, the people who came in had to conform to what you did because they were going to be there for 4 years. And if they left, they would have to sit out for a year. It's no longer the case. So it causes you to be a little bit more authentic because what I tell you in recruiting is what I have to live up to when you get here because you don't have to stay anymore. So I, I kind of don't get to lie to you. I kind of don't get to
Yeah.
just pitch you and sell you things, sell you a bag of goods and then not deliver on it when you get here. I got to do exactly what I said I'm going to do from the beginning. And then once I do that, you can choose to stay or not. But no matter what, you're going to be a better version of yourself when you leave.
Yeah, which is obviously like the goal as a coach is obviously to get them to be a better player, but also again to get them to be a better individual. And I feel like that's one part that isn't really talked enough about is just
Mhm.
the impact of a coach player relationship, obviously on the court, but off the court as
Mhm.
well. And that relationship, like keeping that relationship throughout the process is extremely important. And I'm sure that, like we talked about, you learned under Izzo, but also connections as well, because under Izzo, you had Dwayne Stevens at
Yeah.
MSU, you went to NAU for a year, and then you end up coming back to Michigan to coach for Dwayne Stevens.
Mhm.
So, like, you kind of had that relationship with specific coaches, which has probably helped you grow the relationship with them, but also with the players as well.
Yeah, and it's one of the big things in that Michigan State culture that is not seen, but how much time that Coach Izzo and his staff spends with those guys that doesn't have anything to do with basketball, and just making sure you understand who they are and who they trust that pushes them to that level. Because especially with Coach Stevens when I was at Western, he was big on, very, very big on who is in their circle that they trust, getting to know them, really getting to know the player so we can understand how everybody can get on the same page in order to push them to the top of that mountain. And it's something that from coaches Owen and Coach Stevens, I learned quite a bit about just how important that is because I mean, they're when they go home after a tough day, they talking to somebody.
Yeah.
And you have to make sure that the person that they call and talking to is on the same page as you. Or they're going to be getting different external messages that conflict them when they come on the basketball court. And you'll never get the best version of the player that way.
Yeah. Or you also have to make sure you have like the same language you're talking to the trainers,
Mm,
the wait staff. Like everyone has to kind of be on the same wavelength, because if everyone's not on the same wavelength, then there could be issues in the future. So it's kind of that connection within like the organization as well.
for sure.
So obviously, we talked a lot about MSU, Coach Stevens, Coach Izzo. We've talked a little bit about your philosophy, but what makes the state of Michigan special when it comes to basketball? Like, why did you want to return to Michigan when it comes to Western, when it comes to SVSU? Was it really the state that stands out, and just how different is the state of Michigan basketball wise, maybe compared to when you're out in Arizona?
Um, well, the high school scenes are both a little bit different. I think Arizona has a lot of really good prep schools, and that's what they kind of stand on out there that they like. The high school basketball scene in Michigan has always been fairly competitive, but now we're losing a lot of our kids to the prep school ranks. Um, Especially when they get older to be juniors and seniors, they leave and they go prep. So, it is a area in which I felt very comfortable, especially recruiting and the relationships that I've built here that allow me to get to know players and understand which players are coming up through the pipeline because it is kind of my era of basketball player that is becoming the high school coaches and the AAU coaches now. So, my relationship with them and familiarity with that is what brought me back.
And do you think being a younger coach helps with that a little bit? Helps with that connection with maybe like the high schoolers, with like the transfer portal, with some of these players that might come in, because you might understand a little bit more like of them than maybe coaches that have been coaching for 20, 30 years.
Yeah, I think that answer is kind of twofold. Like it still allows me to speak their language in a sense, which that helps, but also because I can speak their language and understand them a little bit better, they're expecting me to be a little bit more lenient because
Yeah.
it's like, wait, well, you went through this too. How do you not understand? Well, it's like, yeah, I went through it and I learned just how much I should have done this part.
Yeah.
Right. So like you can kind of speak in a retrospective sense when you're this age, but you can speak their language. But while speaking their language, they think you're one of them as well. Like, hey, like you should know that I don't want to do this, or I said you should know why this is this. And it's kind of twofold as being young could help and hurt in that sense because they're like, well, you went through it. Why don't you feel my pain? Why don't you have the empathy that you should have? And it's because I'm trying to push you to levels that I didn't make it to. Not, I don't want you to do the same thing as me. I actually want you to do better than what I did. And I tell my players all the time when I speak, I speak from two lenses. Either I did it and I understand why it worked, so I want you to do it, or I didn't do it and I wish I would have, so I'm gonna give it to you now, right? So
Yeah.
like that's the kind of the lens I try to speak from, and hopefully they understand.
Yeah, and it's again going back to that relationship between you and your players. It's about having that relationship, having that trust, learning from each other, and really applying that. And it takes time, but
And
obviously, you've been at SVSU for a little bit. I'm sure that you're going to continue to address those philosophies, address kind of the way you want to coach. But for anyone listening to this that might not know you extremely well, what's one thing that you really want to have them take away from an SVSU game when they come watch you, your program, your players?
oh man, I hope they feel as if we all are enjoying ourselves out there, and I mean that in the most competitive way. That like you see a team that enjoys rising levels of competition. Like the harder a game gets, the more we seem to settle in. Like I hope people see that. Um, but I hope people see like very adaptable and creative problem solvers on the floor, like guys who are put in situations that they've either seen so many times that they understand how to solve the problem because they've seen it so many times, or it's a new situation and they're able to adapt to that situation no matter what comes. So I hope they see a team that enjoys competition. So when the competition rises, they enjoy rising with it no matter the result, and then adaptable and creative problem solvers.
Love that answer. And speaking of competition, you're going to be in the GLIAC, so it's going
Mm.
to be competition every single night. I'm sure that you felt a little bit about it, but in my opinion, especially when it comes to D2 conferences around the country, I truly think the GLIAC is one of the best, if not the best conference in the entire country.
Yeah, I mean my relationship with the GLIAC goes back to my first couple years at college, and I think all 4 years of college, we played an exhibition game against a GLIAC school. In my first 2 years, we were all young and we came in with a new head coach and played Lake Superior State. And the first time we played them, we won the game, but it was very close. The second time we played them, we should have lost. And there was some missed free throws and some lucky bounces that we got that, propelled us to win. But the older guards and older players in this league are Division I players
Yeah.
at any level. It's just who knows why they developed late in order to not be able to get there when they were young. But there's a lot of good players out there. So you get to the right system, and once you get to the right system and you develop the right way, then they're able to play with just about anybody, as well as there are a lot of fantastic coaches in the league who continue to get better at this level. So I'm excited to see it and challenge my own philosophies against theirs and compete that way.
Awesome. And we've talked about the rivalry against Northwood. How excited are you to face, obviously, GVSU?
How excited am I to face GVSU?
Yeah, being the head coach on the opposite side of GVSU.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. Like I'm excited to see what that feels like. I've been a part of some really good rivalries in my day, leading from a younger age all the way up until now. So I'm excited to see what this one's about and go into it and prepare my team to win a game, but also to respect the rivalry.
Yeah.
Like I want it to feel like that. I don't want it to just be like to sit back and say, "Oh, this is just a normal game." Like that's never how Coach Izzo approached Michigan. It's not normal
Yeah.
when you go in there, and I don't. But it's a respect thing. It's not normal because of how much I respect who's on the other side, and I know Coach Corn and a few of their staff members, and I respect those guys to the highest degree. And the only way I know how to show my respect is to put the best product out there that I can and push everybody to that point. So I'm excited to do that.
Yeah, it's about competing against each other, putting your best foot forward. They put your best foot forward, and whoever comes out at the end of the
Yeah.
night, there's that respect for each other, and let's do it again another time.
And it's all like this sports at the end of the day is entertainment, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to do is entertain those people who are coming to watch. And we don't want people to walk away from that, especially the alumni of Saginaw Valley and the alumni of Grand Valley to be like, oh, that was just another game. I don't want them to feel like that. And I don't want my guys to feel
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh, we just going to play another game. I want everybody in the arena to feel the the level of competition that's gonna come through there.
Yeah. It means different, right? Like,
And
rivalries
and it
mean
should.
different. Yeah.
It should. We shouldn't act like it doesn't. It should mean everything to everybody. It meant it that's why it's a rivalry in the first place.
Yeah, and you lived it out for Central and Western, obviously, is a
Central.
big rivalry. You've seen Michigan State. You see, obviously, GVSU, SVSU, SVSU, Northwood. That's what I love about sports is you have rivalries and you have coaches, you have fans, you have players that care so much about playing well, but also you have that respect thing, the respect part of it. And I feel like that's the most important part that isn't talked about is you want to perform and you want to put your best foot forward because you have so much respect for the other team.
Because of who you are. Like, I respect
Exactly.
you for who you are and what you've done and how successful you've been. And the only way for everybody to get the best out of one another and push each other to that next level, if they put the best product on the court that they can and we do the same thing, then whatever the result is what it is.
Yeah.
But at least we've created an environment that people want to be in. And that's our job.
Yeah, and then it goes all the way back to being authentic, being yourself, having that family within the culture. Like I feel like we could go in circles about like how
Yeah.
everything truly goes back to authenticity, about
Yeah.
really caring about it. And that truly seems like that's just what you're doing at SVSU, which I think is amazing. I think and really going to hope that you're obviously extremely successful there. I think you're a great coach. But before we wrap up here, I do want to ask you one question. It's not really basketball or anything, but what's something that the fans should know about you that they might not know? Maybe like a hidden talent. Maybe like are you obviously you're extremely competitive, but I did see on Twitter, I believe it was the Great Lake Loons game where you threw out the first pitch and you responded to that with a gif and it was just like just a bit outside.
Yeah.
Like I love that. I'm like when I saw that, obviously would love to have you on anyways, but I'm like that is the type of person, that's the type
Yeah.
of coach I want to play for, someone that makes fun of themselves a little bit.
Yeah. Was one of Major League's one of my favorite movies. So, but I am by nature, I'm a theater and interpretation major in
Okay,
college. So I, acting is something that I enjoyed. After some injuries in high school, I didn't necessarily know if I was going to be able to play college basketball, but I knew I had to go to college, so I wanted to boost my resume. Uh, so I joined the student council and I auditioned for a school play, and
that's
I
awesome.
got casted for a play in high school. I had so much fun doing it that I was like, maybe I want to learn more about this craft. So I decided to learn more about the craft in college, and I did a play my senior year of college as well. And I mean, it's some of the most fun that you'll ever have from a camaraderie standpoint, in a theater class and with theater students and people that you go about your business in a team like way
Yeah.
in that aspect as well. So, um, I mean, that's probably something that nobody on first glance would guess.
Okay.
But when you spend more time around me, I think you'll be able to see it.
So obviously you're an actor. Would you have been like in a different situation, maybe a completely different world or timeline? Do you think you would have been like in musicals? Do you think you would have been TV, movies? Like where do you think you
Yeah.
would have been headed?
So I can't sing.
You can't
Um,
sing.
I can't sing. But I can't say because of what I know about the craft and
Okay.
how hard those individuals work. I'm not gonna sit on this podcast and say that, yeah, I could have done it because the luck in the luck that you have to have and the amount of talent and time that it takes to get where those people get is something that I don't think. And when we watch it on movies or Netflix, that we don't respect it at the time.
Yeah.
But when you learn more about what they have to go through to get where they are, it's kind of amazing. I mean, the chances of getting to one of those TV shows that breaks out or getting to a movie that actually makes money or getting on stage and making it to Broadway, like that's about as hard as making it to the NBA, if not, or if so. I just maybe if I were to put my time into it and studied it and put all the effort into it that I am currently trying to put into coaching, who knows? Like maybe I could have gotten casted in one of those sports shows, throw me an All-American, or maybe I could have played a role in Coach Carter or something like that. I don't know, something
Yeah.
like that, something crazy in a sports movie because of my build and the typecast that I would have had. But just knowing, especially the best of them, knowing what they have to do and the type of what they put into it. Yeah, I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
Yeah, but also at the same time, you put in that time for basketball, right? It's just
I did.
different. It's just different. It's a different situation, but you still put in that time. So maybe in a different timeline, maybe you would have put in that time towards acting, but obviously it's worked out extremely well for you. And now you're a head coach at a great university in Saginaw Valley State University, almost kind of like full circle for you.
Yeah, no, it's definitely something that I'm excited about. My wife graduated from here, so I'm excited to be representing her alma mater and, trying to make her proud as I'm in this role. And, maybe in a different time that if I were to put the same effort in, who knows what may have happened. But I I respect both crafts
Yeah.
and understand what goes into both of them because I got to be behind the scenes and all of it. And I just know how many super talented people don't get even close because of just how fortunate you have to become, or even the type of look that you have to have. You might be a inch or two too tall, or not the skin shade that you need to be in order to play specific roles. And it doesn't have anything to do with your talent. The script just doesn't call for it,
Yeah.
right? And how many people, because of that, don't make it where they possibly could. And it's the same thing with sports. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, a 5'11" point guard and a 6'4" point guard are two different things. They could be the same equal amount of talent, but 6'4" works in the NBA better than 5'11" does,
Yeah.
right?
A
So
little bit.
it's the same thing, but I mean, like that's different.
Yeah. But hey, like it's about the time, it's about the effort, it's about getting the opportunity. And I truly do mean this. Like I will be a fan of yours. I'll be cheering for you guys over at SVSU. And I truly do appreciate you taking like 45 minutes of your time to join today. It's been an honor. It's been a ton of fun talking about SVSU. Like I said, I'll be a big fan of yours. I'll be cheering you on. And I truly think you have a great thing started at SVSU, and I think you're going to continue to grow this thing. And I think SVSU will be right at top of the GLIAC really shortly.
I appreciate that. I hope so as well. Thank you so much for inviting me on this, and I'm, anytime, anytime.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate it. I'll give you the rest of your day back. Enjoy the Axe Bowl for the first time
Yeah, I'm
tomorrow.
excited. Go
Absolutely.
Cardinals.
Absolutely. And that is a wrap to episode number 489. And thank you again to Coach Fowler for joining, and tune in to the next episode.